We do a lot of things for ourselves. We set up things that are comfortable for us without really anticipating bringing somebody out, which is unfortunate because what are we doing if we're not fully planning on bringing somebody out?
This is Code 3, the Firefighters podcast, hosted by award-winning journalist Scott Orr. Now, here's Scott.
That's right, and I will not let Parkinson's stop me. Welcome back to another edition of Code 3. This is the show where firefighters learn. Just give me about 20 minutes and I'll give you a topic to think about. One guest, one topic, no wasted time. Now let's get started. Ladder work is one of the most basic parts of firefighting, but basic does not always mean simple. There is a lot of technique involved in throwing, carrying, and placing a ladder correctly, and small decisions can have a big impact on how well that ladder works when it matters. Today we're looking in depth at best practices for using ladders. We'll talk about the mechanics behind a good ladder throw, we'll talk about storage and deployment on the rig, and we'll look at some of the common mistakes firefighters make when handling ladders. My guest today is Sam Hittle. He's a captain with the Wichita, Kansas Fire Department. He's been published multiple times by Fire Engineering, and he has a lot of background in training. And Sam Hittle joins me now. Welcome to Code 3.
Yeah, good to be here.
It's good to have you here. So, if ladder operations were purely common sense, we wouldn't see so many fireground mistakes. What's the most common intuitive mistake firefighters make with ladders that actually goes against proper technique?
The two biggest for sure are the technique and how we throw them. We don't understand that the ladder is basically a lever, and depending where we're at on that ladder depends on where the fulcrum effort and resistance is. The ground can be the fulcrum, and when we get on the wrong side of mechanical advantage, we can become the fulcrum. And so that lever is shifting around. And likewise, when we throw it up against a building, we don't really realize that if we climb over a certain point, like if we climb over that ridge line, then once again, we end up shifting where that effort, resistance, and fulcrum is on that lever. And then that's how we actually get that ladder to kick out. When we're climbing a ladder, traditionally, we're going to have the foot of the ladder is going to be on the ground. We're going to be the effort, and then our resistance is actually going to be up on the ridge line where we're trying to get onto the roof. Now, if we climb up above that roof line, then our effort shifts. And just like any kind of basic ladder, when we move the effort, the fulcrum, and the resistance around, we get a different type of lever. And that's where we end up seeing that kick out.
All right. So ladder work is often viewed as basic or unglamorous compared to other fireground tactics. How do you get seasoned firefighters to take ladder proficiency seriously, especially when they feel like they've already checked the box on it?
I think we don't like ladders for two reasons. One, they take work. I mean, they really do. They're exhausting, especially when it's hot out or you've made a lot of runs that day, multiple fires that day. It requires a lot of effort. And so, one, we don't like that. And then two, we're really not that great at it, even though we try to say it's common sense. It is common sense. You raise the ladder and you lean it up against the building or your window or whatever you're trying to achieve. But the reality is what's not common sense is how we throw that ladder. And so as far as getting people to take it seriously, I think that's something that has to be driven by the department or the culture.
When you differentiate between the department and the culture, is that something that can start at the station level?
Absolutely. I mean, if you train on it and you get good at it where it requires less effort, you're more likely to want to do it on the fire ground. So I would say training, and then the company level expectations of being able to throw a ladder efficiently is the beginning of it. And then, of course, the department can set its own culture as well through policy or just best practices. The reality is a lot of firemen tend to follow what they witness on the fire ground being successful more so than they do policy. So you get companies to start doing it. Other companies will just start emulating it. Have you ever noticed that to be the case, though?
Well, yeah, because when people see what their coworkers are doing, they assume that's the best way to do it. So that does make sense.
Correct.
I'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us. If you're getting ready to promote, listen up. Test Rescue is the new way to study. Over 300,000 practice questions from 125 sources, with every question sourced to the page it came from. And Test Rescue doesn't just give you multiple choice questions. It includes select all that apply and fill in the blank, plus real-world math problems for driver, operator, engineer candidates. Test Rescue even flags where two books contradict each other, or where one book contradicts itself. Best of all, you can upload your own department's SOPs and protocols so you can study everything all in one place. Right now, Test Rescue is offering a free 48-hour trial. Everything's unlocked and they don't even ask for a payment method. Plus, for Code 3 listeners, they'll take an extra 20% off your first month. Just use coupon code Code3Podcast at checkout. Find out more at testrescue.com. That's testresq.com. And thank you to Test Rescue for sponsoring this show. Alright, let's talk about storage on the rig. How does ladder storage on the apparatus impact speed and decision making on arrival? What common rig setup flaws do you see that get in the way of efficient deployment?
Okay, so a couple things that we do for efficient deployment, and I'm not on a truck anymore. I'm on a rescue now, so we don't have as many ladders. But we used to put a little piece of green electrical tape on the bed section, and we would just say, grab the green. So sometimes you get guys, they have to take a cognitive pause to figure out which part of the ladder to grab to pull it out. And if they choose poorly, then they just unbed the ladder and create new problems for themselves. As far as tools go, get your roof hook on there. It's just one less thing you have to carry. It's one less thing you have to think about. I can say that for Wichita, one of the really nice things is if you have a ladder, you have a roof hook. I cannot think of a single ladder out there that does not have a roof hook already attached to it. And that's a really nice benefit. The other thing that I might suggest is decide, is it a front yard throw or a backyard throw? And what I mean by that is you're going to decide, do I have the tip out or do I have the foot out? But we rode the truck, we had one of each. So depending on how you end up positioning the truck, whether you're responding to the Alpha or Charlie side is going to dictate which way you want those tips or feet to be to make that throw more efficient.
Those are two good suggestions. How do you fasten the hook to the ladder?
So what we do is we attach some sort of ring. It can be with zip ties, metal clamps, but we attach a ring down lower on like the 2/3 from the top. And that's what the base of, we carry all New York roofers, so we don't have any D-handle stuff. We drop the bottom or the pry end of the roof hook into that ring, and then we put the head, because we run duo safety ladders, we put the head of that roof hook into the tip that has two little openings, and then just run a piece of Velcro to hold it on there. There's some variations to that, but that's pretty standard.
So all it has to do is hold the hook in place as it comes out of the bed.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
And then once it's out of there, the firefighters can control it.
Yeah, and then when you get to the top, if you need it on a roof, you've already got rungs raised up above that roof line. Undo the Velcro and just pull it straight up, and you have a hook to work with. If you're trying to vent a window, you climb to the top of the ladder, same thing. There's a hook right there for you.
Now, coordinating ladders while carrying other tools like irons or saws or hose lines can slow everybody down. What are your core principles for managing equipment during ladder setup?
So there's a thing called a briefcase, and you can go to fire engineering. We did a thing with Traditions Training on that. Basically, how to get the Halligan to ride inside the rung and against the beam with friction, and then carrying the roof hook in a different way for that. Basically, again, setting the head inside a rung, positioning that roof hook on towards the outside. So when you grab the outside and carry it kind of like a briefcase, when you grab that ladder, you're actually pinching that roof hook between your arm and your body, and that'll keep it from kind of flailing around. And then you have one hand for the saw. It's really kind of difficult to articulate, so I would encourage go to fire engineering, look up the briefcase, and see what you think. Yeah, something else that you can also do that I was really fond of, and the guys liked it as well. If guys had to carry multiple ladders, because we need a roofer on the roof, and then we needed our extension ladder to get up there, um, I would take the saws, and when I'm doing my 360, I would just drop the saw where I wanted the ladder to be positioned. So by the time they got up there with the ladders, they just needed to look for the saw in the front yard. That's where they threw the ladder. By the time they got that done, I'm back from my 360, and we would go up together. So it was a nice way to help them with the equipment and also reduce communication while being very precise in the spot that we want to go up.
What are the key factors that drive a firefighter's decision on ladder placement when they balance competing priorities, like immediate search and rescue versus aggressive vertical ventilation?
So for us, we're fortunate. We can split the truck. Even if we operate as a first due truck off the rescue, we have an outside vent. So if ventilation's the priority, then we will carry our own equipment. If we split and we decide to go in and search and leave roof operations to the split truck or to the outside vent, then they're going to be responsible for carrying that equipment. But we pull up on scene and we make the decision whether we're going to vent or search, and everybody kind of knows their responsibilities within those two parameters.
Now, when you talk about deployment physics, what critical mechanical or physical principles do firefighters often overlook during the placement of ladders?
I would say when it comes to throwing, the main thing that we overlook is what I call the trouble zone, which is the 30 to 60 degree range. At 45 degrees, that's when the ladder is going to be the heaviest, regardless of whether you're past 45 or under 45. And the sooner we can get that ladder out of that trouble zone, that 30 to 60 degrees, and we're basically looking at the internal angle of the foot of the ladder going up the beam to the ground, the better off we are. So we can use momentum for that. We can increase height for that. But the main thing that we want to do is stay away from getting on the wrong side of the center of mass. When we get on the wrong side of the center of mass, which is dictated by the angle, we end up with a negative mechanical advantage. And where guys really see this is they have no problem throwing a 24-foot extension, right? That's going to be 14 bedded, or a 28 extension's going to be 16 bedded. And we don't tend to have too much trouble with that. A little bit more with the 28 because it's a little bit longer. But you give them a single ladder that's 18 foot or 20 foot, you're talking something that's roughly 35 to 40% lighter. And all of a sudden they get in a lot of trouble, right? And the reason they get in so much trouble is they end up on the wrong side of the center of mass, and they end up with a negative mechanical advantage where things are actually heavier. Think about it this way. Probably the best way to explain it is If I took a 6-foot New York roofer and I put the pry end on the ground, grab the head of the roofer, and I just lift it up, it's a pretty light hook. But if I were to go to the other end and just grab the chisel end and try to raise it up using wrist strength, I would have a significantly different experience, right?
Fire service has opposing views on topics like tip placement and carrying styles. What are some of the biggest different debates that you see in this area? Where do you land on them? For instance, carrying styles.
Carrying styles is based on the ergonomics of the individual. Some guys like to do ladder flips. Some guys like to do high shoulder carries, low shoulder carries. I personally prefer the low shoulder carry, um, especially if you're dealing with like a 3-section 35, because you get this uneven torque effect. And all of those things chew up energy. I always say you want to learn tricks on the fire ground, follow geriatric people around. We're going to do it the laziest way we can. Um, Now, I think another thing that we get into debates over is the the tip of the ladder. Does it go just above the windowsill or does it go just below the windowsill? And I would say neither one is wrong as long as you understand the pros and the cons, right? So one of the reasons people like to put the tips just barely inside the windowsill is because when they're getting on and off of that ladder, if it slides, it's going to hit the jambs and it doesn't fall over. And there's definitely benefit to that. Now, the contra to that is if I'm bringing somebody out with clothing, their belt, shirts, even our air pack waist belt can get stuck on that, on the tip, if we're trying to go out head first. So that becomes a little bit problematic. We use pompier hooks on our bailouts. Something like that gets hooked over the tip of the ladder, you're going to get hung up. So we prefer to put the tips just below the windowsill. Now, with that, we if we kick off or we kind of push off a little too aggressive going in the window, we can actually kick the ladder off, especially if you're dealing with like vinyl siding or icy conditions. So it really just comes down to you've got to figure out what are the benefits and what are the negatives to it, and make that decision for yourself.
All right. And finally, how should a company officer's perspective on ladders differ from that of the tailboard firefighter?
I would say they both need to understand what the other is doing, but I think the company officer should be more focused on where that placement's going to be. And the tailboard firefighter needs to be more focused on being proficient with making the throw and, of course, carrying it. So I think the human element it's unpredictable. I think you need to have some ideas of what you're going to do, but the human element's unpredictable. I mean, we've seen people jump out of 5-story buildings with no smoke in the window.
Do you believe that firefighters tend to set up their ladders for themselves and not considering how much they might have to help a victim get down it?
Yeah, I think in general, we do a lot of things for ourselves, particularly like things we do with vests. We set up things that are comfortable for us without really anticipating bringing somebody out, um, which is unfortunate because what are we doing if we're not fully planning on bringing somebody out? And an example of that is a lot of times we'll see a more favorable climbing angle for the vest. And if we needed to bring a victim out, that 60 degrees is going to be better than the 75-degree climbing angle. And the reason that it's going to be better is even though we're going from 75 to 60, which is a 15-degree difference, we're actually going from a ladder that's carrying 25% of the victim's body weight at the 75 degree to a ladder that carries 50% of their body weight at a 60 degree. And that's going to be significant, whether they go unconscious or they come out of the ladder unconventional or come onto the ladder unconventionally, which there's no shortage of videos out there or situations where that happens. We don't generally see people get on ladders in a favorable way, right? They come out head first, or they get their center of mass off the side of the footprint, meaning outside the beams of the ladder. And now we're contending with this really difficult person to try to hang on to. At the same time, they're trying to grab and manipulate the situation themselves. So having that ability to carry 50% of their body weight against the ladder is going to help them. And it's also going to make it where we have to put less effort to pinch them onto the ladder until we can get the limbs under control.
All right, Sam Hittle, thank you very much for being with me today on Code 3.
I appreciate it. Again, I love the 20 minutes. Hopefully some of that stuff made sense. I know it does in my head. Keep up the good work, my man.
And you can find the video that Sam mentioned on our website at code3podcast.com/ground ladders. So, it's not just about getting a ladder to the building. It's about understanding how that ladder works. It's about making them throw more efficient. And it's about planning ahead for what that ladder may actually be used for. One of the biggest takeaways for me was the idea that we shouldn't set up a ladder only for ourselves. If that ladder becomes a rescue tool, the person coming down it may have very different needs. That's something worth thinking about the next time you're training on ladders. And that's it. That's all for Code 3 this week. Join me again next week for more. Until then, stay safe.
To contact us, get more information on today's show, or to subscribe to the podcast, go to code3podcast.com.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.